What's really interesting to talk about lab grown, it doesn't really sound exciting. I just have a hard time thinking things that are grown in a lab and artificial things are added to them that they're going to be safe in any way, or what can they put in there? All right, welcome back to another episode of the Brave Today podcast. This show is going to encourage, challenge, maybe even provoke you to step outside of your comfort zone so that you can take better action to improve yourself and your health. I'm your host, Mark Avenson, in this crazy upside down world that keeps pushing a narrative for people to become softer and weaker and sicker and unhealthier and more dependent than ever. The goal and intent of this show is to help you navigate through it so you can become not just braver today than you were yesterday. Now, we're going to get into this show right away. I do brave guest interviews where I interview people that I look up to and admire, people that are not just brave, but also helping other people become braver today than they were yesterday. We do a brave Q&A. That's where I answer questions. So if you have questions, anything related mainly to health, fitness, weight loss, you can ask me any questions, of course. The best way to do that is to send them in info@avensfitness.com, or you can also respond in the comments if you're checking this out on YouTube, or if you comment in a podcast, you follow me on social, you can drop a question, say, hey, I have a question about this. Can you answer it for me on the next Brave Q&A? Maybe I will feature that. So again, anything goes, mostly health, fitness, weight loss. Why should you be listening to me? I've been doing this for 3 decades, for more than half my life. So I do have a lot of answers, not all the answers. I'm still learning and I'm still developing and growing and becoming even better. And the way to do that is to help people like you navigate through those questions you have. So make sure you ask those questions. Don't be afraid. Ask a question. Then we do flavor of the day. That's what we're going to be talking about today. I'm really excited to share with you some controversy that's just been kind of coming up, and it's actually making me a little bit fearful in the food industry space, but we're going to touch base on that. I also have, before we get into the flavor of the day, we do breakthrough episodes. And that's where I take a deeper dive into some area, maybe be it physical or mental, emotional, or spiritual, basically in an area that could be holding you back and providing insight and guidance to help you have a breakthrough, right? When you're being held back, you want to have a breakthrough. And we actually have some good breakthrough episodes coming up. So definitely stay tuned. And of course, if you like the show, definitely do yourself a favor and subscribe to it. I'll be sharing different shows. I try to put out 2 to 3 a week, sometimes maybe 4. Other than that, I appreciate you taking the time to watch, and let's jump right in. So lab grown meat, like weird meat. Let's just call it what it is. Weird meat, lab grown meat. You probably have heard of it before. Kind of freaks me out. I'll just be honest with you right off the bat. The first time I heard about it, I think I might have saw a video that said, okay, they're trying to get rid of, if you've noticed, they're trying to eliminate farms and ranchers. And it's interesting, since moving here, I've gotten connected with some of them and I have a deep appreciation. Also, having grown up on a farm, my grandfather was a part potato farmer and part chicken farmer. And they also had cows and pigs. And, we lived on that farm. I was 5th generation on the farm. I got to see and be a part of really the last generation in my family to live on a farm. Really just something that was, I really didn't appreciate at the time, but I do say one of the things I do remember is how fresh we were able to have with eggs and with meat. And, I always think I've been a relatively healthy individual. And I have a strong belief that has something to do with my childhood. And anyway, I don't want to go too deep into that, other than when I started to hear about there's these companies that are trying to make lab grown meat, basically take the cells. Essentially, what is that? You're taking the cells from meat products and basically generating those into cell grown in a laboratory meat. So I can just say right off the bat, without even much knowledge on it, it doesn't sound quite right. If you think about all of history, back in the cavemen days where they would basically hunt for their food, I think the way God intended us is to oversee the land and the animals that are on this land so that we could not go hungry, right? So again, to take dominion over those things doesn't mean to recreate them into some kind of magical new product. Well, what happens? Let's just talk about kind of the space. In June 2023, the US regulators, if you will, approved the sale of chicken made from animal cells. That was in 2023. Two California companies, in fact, I don't have the names of the companies, but two California companies now offer lab-grown meat in restaurants. And the goal is it eventually in supermarkets. There's two companies, I believe, there's probably more now, but in the research that I've done, Upside Foods and Good Meats. These now they're what's really interesting to talk about lab grown. It doesn't really sound exciting. In fact, I think the general sense is from what I've been talking to people, just regular people out and about, people in my church, people at the gym, people in my neighborhood, and they're like not for it. So listen up. If you're listening and you're a lab grown advocate, I'm going to have to tell you that the public is not going to tolerate that. With that, they're going to do whatever it takes to keep real meat on tables, and they will even be willing to pay more. At least I will be willing to pay more for real meat. But they're calling this stuff, which is really interesting. They're calling this lab-grown meat. They want to call it cultured meat or cell cultivated meat. So if you're at a grocery store, and I know it's out there now, and depending on where you live, you might see it in the grocery store. I would be very, very conscientious of when you're getting your meat, looking at the products, making sure some of these labels aren't on there, because I guarantee you they're going to try to slip them in anywhere possible. And I think the hardest thing for me to realize, and we were just out at a restaurant the other night, but I know a lot of restaurants are considering to offering this kind of meat, and they're going to be sly about it. And the reason why they're thinking about it is there's a longer shelf life for this. Meat has a shelf life, right? Like it's going to go bad unless it's frozen and then thawed out. But like real fresh meat, just like produce, is going to have an expiration date. And the cell-grown meat, one of the things they share is that is a longer shelf life for this stuff. They actually FDA approved products that are safe to eat. Now, I just have a hard time thinking things that are grown in a lab and artificial things are added to them that they're going to be safe in any way, or what can they put in there? That's my going down the rabbit trail, and I'm not going to go down there with you, but I think if they're able to do that, what do you think they're going to be putting in the meat? Well, we already know based on the rest of the products that are in the grocery stores, there's so much stuff that's in there that's not good for us. In fact, if you go look side by side for some of the things that are made here in the United States, and I'm talking here in the States versus in other countries, things like ketchup, and there's like 6 ingredients in ketchup in the UK, and here there's 40 ingredients. There's something not right. Well, I'm not here to go into the other conversation of when we're sick and we're more reliant on medications and drugs and going to medical and doctors and all that stuff. We become a good product for these companies to make a lot of money off of. So I don't want to go in there too deeply. Maybe that'll be for another show. But one of the things that I actually wanted to share with you is some stuff on the lab-grown meat, things to look forward. And I would just say I'm sharing this with you because if you're not aware of it, it's coming. And I would definitely do some research. Go ahead, do your due diligence looking into that. And one of the things that we've done, we didn't really think about up until the last couple of years, and specifically since we recently moved here to the foothills of the Rocky Mountains in Colorado, is we've been networking and looking into local farmers, ranchers that actually can can provide a good meat source for us. And we know where it's coming from. We know what's being fed. And I have actually a great podcast that I'm going to be sharing with you from a local bison rancher here. And I got connected with, and I can't really say much about it. It's going to be a great story, but really just got me thinking about why would I not want to actually work with a local rancher when I can get the meat right from the farm versus it coming overseas. Before the lab grown meat, we know that these sources of meat products, and we've heard not only like your ground beef and stuff that's cheap in the grocery store or cheaper, a lot of the stuff is coming from hundreds of different cows. Some of it's coming from different countries. And a lot of the stuff is shipped overseas, and like the quality control, I guarantee you, is not nearly what we think it might be for us, safe to eat. So I would just say in the near future, if you're not already, you want to become a better consumer of your health. As you're a better consumer of your health, you got to realize the stuff that you're taking in. Whether it's real meat, lab-grown meat, if they want to call it cultivated. But listen, one of the things that I want to share with you, the problems with lab-grown meat, one of the things that that has come up allegedly is that there's contamination in these meats, contaminated with things like heavy metals and microplastics, nanoplastics, allergens, such as additives to improve the taste and texture of these products, chemical contaminants, toxic components, antibiotics, and that sort of stuff. So again, all those things don't really sound like what you want to be ingesting. So that's something that I really would kind of make you aware that you should probably start doing some research, start understanding. And then even with restaurants, you want to look into what restaurants are allowing lab-grown meats and cultivated meats in these products into them. And that way you can actually make a better informed decision on who you choose to spend your money on to go out for a meal. So there was something in the FAO and WHO that talked about lab-grown meats, and there was like 53 hazards again, identified by them in that. So that's some controversy on there. I think that's what's kind of delaying. I believe this stuff has been out, like I'd mentioned, in like the last year or two. I think they started out was back in, I want to say, I think 2013, 2014. I don't have those numbers right in front of me. But to be honest with you, they're expecting from then, now 2024, they're expecting by 2030 that this is going to be a multi 25 to $30 billion industry. Of course, if it's going to be making money, people are interested in it, regardless if it's good for you or not. You know, I think the most important part for this flavor of the day, truly flavor of the day, is just to make you aware that there's things like this out there on the market. You're going to the grocery store and you're looking at meat. Sooner or later, you're going to probably see stuff that's lab grown. They might be calling it cultivated or cultured meat. When you go to a restaurant, you might be wondering what's cultivated beef. That's what it is. So again, you want to take a look at that. And you know, the goal is that they're going to make it look and taste the same. And you think of where the look and the taste is coming from, artificial measures. There's no other way. You know, the big plot behind this, the why, is kind of interesting because we've had real meat and like cows, pigs, chickens, you know, bison, that kind of stuff for ages. And now all of a sudden it's harmful to animals in these slaughterhouses. Now, mind you, I've seen some of those really nasty videos from slaughterhouses, and I don't agree with that. I'm not saying that. There's humane ways, just like chickens shouldn't be living in a box, right? Those types of things. So I agree with the inhumane, but I also agree that God put those animals on this earth for us to prosper, like for us to live and to eat and to breathe. I don't think that food sources, stuff that we should be ingested, should be made in labs. That's just my opinion. Unfortunately, a lot of stuff I eat, I know processed foods, things, chemicals, flavorings, you know, all those types of things. I know, and I'm making it a point just so you know, and I want to learn for myself so that I can take less of the processing, less of the fake stuff into my body, because I believe that that's what's breaking a lot of people down. It's what's causing a lot of cancers. It's what's lowering the life expectancy, what's causing a lot of issues and diseases and problems such as obesity that's out there. Think chemicals that are making you crave the food, making you want to eat more of that stuff, right? The sugars and the flavorings and the MSGs and all that kind of stuff that's in there. This is just kind of like 2.0 version, having this lab grown meat. I do believe right now it's being sold across there's parts of the United States here, like I mentioned, California, but also believe that it's already being sold, I think, in the grocery stores in like Singapore. The thing is, what's really interesting is this is not even cost effective. It's actually more expensive. So they're not even making this something that's going to be, well, we're doing this so then it'll be more affordable than actually having real meat. And it's not. It's actually going to be more expensive. So not only is it going to cost more, you're not even going to know what's in it. So to me, I'm making the kind of choice to really look into where the meat is grown. And you know what? You start going down the rabbit trail. And I believe it's actually a good rabbit trail to go, because if it's something you're willing to put in your body, you probably should do your due diligence to make sure that you're getting in. If you're going to try to be healthy, if you're going to really make it an intentional part of your life to live as healthy and fit life as you possibly can, it would make sense that you probably do a little bit of research, you do a little bit of background checking, if you will, on the stuff that you're putting in your body. So interesting on that. I believe on the lab grown meat too, I have some other statistics here I want to share with you. The disadvantages, I wanted to go over a couple of disadvantages. I already mentioned one, that's the high production costs. And then there's regulation hurdles that they're going to go through. And then I mentioned this as well. So I just wanted to kind of cap on this is consumer acceptance. I haven't met somebody right now that's saying, yeah, save the animals, save the cows, and let's have all the lab grown meat. Let's have stuff that's synthetically made in a laboratory and put that in our bodies. I don't know anybody that's accepting it yet. If you do, I'd love to know your reasoning behind it. If you're thinking about saving the animals and the cows and all that stuff, it's kind of like these guys that like the environmentalists that are talking about the ozone layers and all this stuff. And, the trees that are out there, and we live in an area that's abundant with trees. In fact, we went to a tree farm the other day. We're going to be planting some trees in our new home in our landscape. And it was just amazing. And if you live anywhere near the forest or the trees, you realize that they're really good. They actually help protect, and animals as well. If it would have ruined it, it would have done it already. So it's interesting how people can justify this being an alternative because of the potential for animals to be causing problems to our environment and so forth. It really just kind of blows me away. I do know that in Italy, they actually ban lab grown meat. I hope that happens here in the US. I know it's going to be pushed out and it's going to be heavily marketed, just like you see a lot of people that have big wallets. They have a lot of investments, and you think if it's being pushed out, there's a lot of people making a lot of money on this. But I do know that there's places like Italy where they actually realize that they have to preserve their traditional culinary values. And I hope in the United States that we wise up and realize the only way we're going to preserve our cultural values and our ranching and the ranchers and the farming industry and so forth is if we don't let this come. So I'm all against, just so you know where I stand. I think you probably already can imagine. I'm actually against this. I don't believe this should be in grocery stores. I don't think it should be anywhere near our mouths. And I don't think it should be something that we should be accepting in to grocery stores, accepting into restaurants, because I think that's just going to open up an avenue where they're going to start putting even more things to make us sicker, make us less healthy. They're going to make us more dependent. They're going to make us fatter than ever. And I just think it's a really slippery slope. I already believe we're already slipping down that slope. I see the farming industries and people that are elites, if you will, that are actually buying up farmland and they're starting to invest in this. I see companies like Tyson Chicken and some other ones that are actually starting to invest in these other products. And I'll tell you what, the bottom line is the big industries, the big corporations, the big elites, they're not out to help you. They're not going to get you healthier. They really don't give a damn about you. They're just out to make money off of you. So you got to be careful. And you need to be a good advocate. You need to be brave enough to realize that it's up to you to be the consumer. You have to decide what you consume. You need to make the choices that you make, and don't let anybody sway those. You don't even need to make this podcast, this show on lab grown meat sway you. I hope that this show gives you permission so that you start to look into it for yourself, just as I have. And I can tell you, it is a very dark place. We do not want to go down the direction of having lab grown meat on our tables. And it is something that I'm going to stand firm in. And I hope you do as well. If you have any questions or comments from this show, that's all I have. Ultimately, what I've done personally, I'll just share this. I've gone to the grocery store. I've looked at stuff that's like organic or grass-fed or farm raised, all those things. They're cage free, like you see. And I start to look into what do those things mean. You could literally go to the grocery store with your phone and start searching it up. What's cage free versus organic versus farm raised, all those type of things. You can look at grass fed beef. I didn't know, but for the most part, when you go to a grocery store and you're buying grass, this is a bonus, and you're buying grass-fed beef, from my research that I looked into, it only has to be grass-fed and grass-finished the last 30 days before it gets processed. So think about that. Doesn't mean it's like, gallivanting on a farm, just eating grass the whole time until it's no, it's being grain. There, a lot of that stuff is being grain-fed and grass-finished, which is like the last 30 days. So something to keep in mind. I only found out about that because I actually started to look into it for my own health and the health of my family. So outside of that, do yourself a favor. Before you go jumping on the bandwagon with lab grown meat because you want to save all the cows, start looking into behind the scenes of who's behind this. Who are the ones that are really pushing this and promoting this? Why are they promoting it? What's in it for them? What's really in it for you? Really, is it going to be better or is it going to be worse? In my opinion, it's going to be way worse. That's why we should really, and like I had mentioned, if you have access to a local rancher or farmer where you can get your beef from, the bottom line is it's about the same price now if you were to go buy real beef from a grocery store. So why not help to provide it for some of those farmers out there that a lot of them are struggling right now. But anyway, that's all I have. If you like this episode, hit the subscribe button. Also, again, I don't do any ads on the show, so you can share this with a friend. Let's get the word out. I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any comments or questions, drop them in the comments. You can send me at info@avensfitness.com. And I hope you have a brave and beautiful day. Take care. God bless.